welcome to episode 22 of the LSQ podcast. I'm your host, Jenny LSQ. So excited in this episode to share with you a nice, long, and rambling conversation with one of my favorite artists ever, singer-songwriter Kurt Vile. I chatted with him in New York last fall on his tour bus outside the venue Brooklyn Steel, where Kurt and his band The Violators were playing that very night, and they're about to be back on tour again in North America starting in the next few days. So check kurtvile.com for info on that. And after the interview with Kurt, you'll hear an excerpt from an early aughts conversation I had with Rivers Cuomo about his love of metal. But yeah, before we get to that, let's get into this.
There was a moment in like the late 2000s, like mid to late 2000s, that luckily you could still give somebody a CDR if you had to. You didn't have to give them a link, and you could still like put out vinyls and CDR. You could put out the actual physical stuff, and people would give it a good album, give it a good DIY cover, and people would look at it and be able to put it in something. But now everything's a link, isn't it? How about that for rambling on?
That is, after all, what we're here to do.
I'm spacing out, you know.
Don't worry, but feel free to, if you need to. I know you're on a show night. If you need to check your.
I wanted to tell you real quick.
Yeah.
Do you know what this riff is? You know what that is?
I don't.
Does it sound familiar? It's Escapade by. It's the hook in Escapade by Janet Jackson.
Shit.
That part I added. It's supposed to be higher, really, but. Sorry.
So, when did you first have an interest in playing music? And did you get the banjo from your dad before you wanted to play it, or did you request an instrument?
No, I wanted a guitar for sure. I had a cousin. I still have him. But I had him, too. My cousin Dan Bauer, he was like my older brother, because I don't have any older brothers, but he lived down the street, and he played drums, and he had bands and stuff before me, and I was trying to get a guitar, and there was a year, my parents, they were going to give me a guitar for Christmas or surprise me or something, but they said I was particularly bad that year. He's like, we were going to get you a guitar, but you've been so bad that we're not doing it. So the next year, my dad was like, I'll get you a banjo for your birthday. This would be my 14th birthday. And I was like, I don't know. Sounds dorky. And then my cousin said, it's pretty cool. It's unique. Maybe you could be in my band. Something like that. And then, but also what really sold me, because my dad would always be playing bluegrass music, which I like. I was a little embarrassed when he played it in front of my friends, and other times it was entertaining. It was funny. He would, like at my birthday parties, he'd be playing a song like Ruby, Honey, Are You Mad at Your Man? It's like, Ruby! Like he'd be dancing, you know? I forget who did that. A bunch of people do it. That's, I guess, the beauty of country music and old-time music. They all do all the, these traditionals. But anyway, my dad drove SEPTA trains, and a SEPTA conductor was he's going to buy this banjo off the SEPTA conductor, and he played. The guy called me on the phone, the telephone, the beautiful telephone, not the cell phone. It sounds good. You play into this telephone. He played me this banjo. He's like, here, this is Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And he's like, here's Cripple Creek. But he played it through the phone. It sounded really cool through the phone. So that sold me.
But why? I mean, I am curious, what you could have possibly done that would have been so bad the year that you were 13. It couldn't have been that bad, but also,
I wanted freedom, and they didn't give it to me. I was hanging out with certain people that were allowed to do whatever they want, or even just, I don't know, go out at all. And
they were like, no.
And they were like, not let me go out at certain things. And I remember I kicked in like the door to my, the downstairs cabinets, things like that.
No guitar for you. Instead, you have to learn an instrument you don't really want to learn. You don't really want to. Here's an instrument you don't really want to learn.
I'm so glad that they started on it though, because it's got an open tuning and it's got the high drone string and enough of the band. Like first, I was listening to alternative music and grunge music like anybody else, mixed with some classic rock. Everybody likes Jimi Hendrix as a kid. get the ultimate experience on CD or something, like some collection. And then there was Smashing Pumpkins. I loved them, of course. But then, like, all of a sudden, once, like, the indie rock bands came through, like...
Ooh, it's got a mind of its own.
Yeah. It's not going to mess with this? Is this okay?
I think it'll just turn off on its own, but let's just let's
put it through some...
Let's not let it bother us.
Put it through some kind of filter.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so, like, eventually, there was a gateway. There was a cool time on like, modern rock and alternative radio where some of the singles were getting weirder and cooler, like Ween, Voodoo Lady, mixed with, like, Pavement, Cut Your Hair, and Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth. I saw that Lollapalooza that Sonic Youth was on. And then that, the gateway into that's like the Drag City catalog that, through Pavement, like get the Hey Drag City comp because Pavement's on it. But all those bands, they're playing weird tunings and like I don't know, I think Through the Banjo is kind of just an open tuning and having started with that and not gotten traditional guitar lessons. I got banjo lessons where I just wouldn't have even, I would have had some bunch of rules, guitar rules, beforehand.
Yeah.
Had I started with the guitar.
It also kind of just, it makes sense even just listening to your music now that some of the cadence of words and stuff like that goes with more of like a finger-picking oriented situation. But did your cousin let you join his band once the...
Well, not that particular band, but he was definitely like, I'd say from high school on, we would take breaks at times, and he would join a band, and then that band would, like, I remember I had a band with him and my friend John Newman, the bass player. I have a song about him called "Song for John and Dee" because he passed away when we were younger. But like, anyway, we had a high school band. It was awesome, and then he took this jam band he was really playing a lot of shows, so he went off and did that, and then I moved to Boston at one point, and I came back, and he was in this band who's still in that I really like, Frog Holler, but it's like an Americana band from outside of Philly, but he would play with me, and he played in the first incarnation of using the Violators actually, and he's on my song Freeway, the recording, and Freak Train, the recording, but anyway, so we always played in and out, but yeah, not with the banjo. I never used the banjo in any of those bands.
But were some of the things other than like the sort of entry level kind of Hendrix type stuff, whether it's Pavement or whatever, was that stuff that your cousin was kind of hepping you to? Or?
No, that was stuff like any of my friends. Like it wasn't just
you
my
went
cousin.
To their, right. It was just what was popular.
In that alternative and then grunge era, and whatever kids are listening to, it was just going around. All of a sudden, that's just what you do when you become a teenager, come of age. It's all kinds of weird stuff. And skateboarding, too. Skate videos. Oh, right. Man. Toy Machines, skate videos. Here, Fugazi on there, Sonic Youth. All kinds of crazy things going on. A lot of ways to pick up on music that's happening.
So when you were first starting to learn to play banjo, learn to play music in general, it was at the same time as you were finding this music that you liked, the songs you were hearing in the skate video, and also my banjo thing was just sort of like could be jokey. Like I had a song called "Skate Bitch" about it's like a skater groupies, things like that. Well, it wasn't meant to be non-PC. I was too young for that. So that's not what I mean. When you say somebody's your bitch, I could say a dude is my bitch. This is my bitch. Yeah.
That was more, the banjo thing was always like a solo thing, so I always sort of had the solo thing, and then I had a band on the side, and it took a while for the solo thing, I think, was always entertaining. I could entertain people solo, and then the band thing took a while. It'd be like noisy and out of tune. It's tricky with electricity, isn't it?
Did you, at that point, when you're a kid, like just an actual kid, where anything you do is a hobby, did it still immediately feel like something very important to you once you actually had an instrument to play?
No, definitely, and I kind of was doing, I don't know, I made recordings in my house. I made them on a tape recorder, and I felt serious right away. I was super into listening to music obsessively and writing music, and then there was a couple years into my playing my own music. Somebody recorded me on a 4-track. A good friend of mine's older brother, and I listened back, and then I was like, because I was big into skateboarding, and I was like, oh, today music beats skateboarding. Skateboarding was my main obsession, and then I knew I just wanted to do music. Just hearing myself back, it was pretty awesome. On a 4-track, it seemed like it might as well have been a hi-fi studio. It sounded so professional to me. Like I could hear the talent and the angst of, but also the angst, and also it's like ego combined, because obviously it's not, it's like it's so much better than it in your mind. It's so much better than it really is, but it's like a good combination of like something you created and like ego or something.
And it would have been a song you wrote.
Yeah, it's definitely a song that I wrote.
Right. And at that point, like who if you were emulating anyone's conspicuously at that point, who would have been the big?
Well, there's always a bunch of different people, but I'd say, well, in that particular recording, it's kind of angsty, to be honest. I had like distortion on my vocal, so I can't say, but it was a 12-string, acoustic 12-string. I'm never going to say the title because I don't want somebody to try to find it. But anyway, I don't know. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
Oh, that's okay.
Go on.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, who were, you mentioned things like Pavement or things
definitely
like
Pavement, and also I'll tell you the classic things that still stick, like Creedence Clearwater. That's also my dad had a tape of that. I loved that. Definitely, people like that was a good era for Beck. All that stuff's so accessible, and Beck was like the Bob Dylan of my time in his own way. I'm actually saying that because somebody's mom said that when I was a teenager. A lot of things I say, I'm literally subliminally always stealing it from somewhere else. But
I agree with that. About
it's like the Bob Dylan of my time.
Well, that like One Foot in the Grave album.
One Foot in the Grave, Stereopathetic Soul Manure, Mellow Gold.
Yeah.
And Rob Schnapp, who recorded Pretty Pimpin' and for my last record, and Wild Imagination, Believe in Going Down, and some songs on this new album. He started Bong Load with a dude and recorded these, like Black Hole by hit the last song on Mellow Gold. Incredible. I love that era of Beck. I mean, I'm nostalgic about that era, hardcore. But and also just seeing him go from there into Odelay, and then he was like on top for a second. It was pretty cool to what this guy. It was, and I guess the excitement was that he was mixing these things. It was like pop mixed with like the noise and the blues. But anyway, there was all these other bands around, obviously, who have been doing it longer than him, but coming like weirder bands, but coming out on like a mainstream alternative radio. Like it was a cool time, It's like like singles by Sonic Youth and Pavement and Ween, weird stuff.
Every so often we get an era like that where stuff that is genuinely weird somehow gets to be heard by people who don't normally gravitate toward weird shit.
I'm gonna have to get a little weirder.
Can you please get weirder?
I'm trying.
So, and once you were obviously serious about it, were your parents did they get it? Did they get the sort of like, I play music now, Mom, Dad?
They were always encouraging and proud. For sure.
You're one of very many siblings. Mm-hmm. You're one of 10 children.
Yes. And
did any of the youngers get into music in your wake?
Who got into music? I'd say about half of us play various forms of music. My brother Sam, my brother Paul, my brother Luke plays drums. And then, my youngest sister, Madeline, she's a really amazing violin player. And really amazing, actually. I think she put it down, but she could pick it up anytime. And she's into playing guitar now, apparently. And my oldest sister, she played a little keyboard, but not really. My dad picked up violin later in life, which is pretty cool, because somebody said that you usually can't do that, but I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. Don't forget I said that was another thing somebody else said.
I don't know. It would seem hard to me. Did you guys ever play together once there were a few of you?
We've jammed around around the holidays or something. Play some country jam, and my cousin Dan's very involved in that too. He got heavy into bluegrass through my dad, and I appreciated bluegrass in the old time, but I didn't get into I still appreciate that, but then my dad got it more into Delta blues, like the folk anthology. Then I was like in my early 20s, and it was like it made more sense to me. And then I saw there was sort of like that John Fahey thing, and whatever. I'm trailing, but you know what I mean.
Had anyone in your family ever been a professional musician before?
No, to this day, I'm the only professional musician in my
I appreciate your professionalism. So did you, because, and I know that you work just like jobby jobs or whatever, as a young adult and everything, but,
jobby job.
Did it when you were a kid and really just loving it and without thinking about the future? I mean, when did you start to think maybe I could find a way to do this as the thing I do?
Well, I was really hoping, or honestly, ever since I heard that one recording back when I was in my, how old was I, 17, 16? And then I made a tape by the time I was 17, 60-minute tape. And then I would, I don't know, I got a little older, late teens into my 20s, definitely playing, gigging around, but not really know much. It wasn't until my early 20s, passing around CDRs and bands that actually had, were on labels, were like responding to my stuff, but it still took forever for me to get people to put my stuff out. So I probably got worried, but honestly, very early on, I would say my teens, that's what I knew I wanted to do with my life. And back then I wouldn't be like, oh, I hope it happens. I'd be like, when it happens. And maybe, once I got slightly beat down and feel like trying and putting out these cool recordings. But I think I'm just kind of awkward. Maybe I just couldn't. It just took me a minute to get people to actually put out my stuff. I will say by the time I was like in my early 20s, 23 especially, I've started recording songs that I've actually put out, on labels that I deemed like legit tunes. I still think they're good to this day, but then there's a lot of learning in there. Not everything. No, they weren't all chestnuts. Let's put it that way.
They can't all be.
Yeah.
And what about the performing side of things? I mean, when did that start to feel like part of the fun? I mean, or was it always part of the fun?
Well, I think I could always perform. I've always sort of had a charisma. I could always round up a scene in my little miniature scene, but I say especially solo. I could be like, I could do this thing solo that people liked right away. The band, the rock and roll thing, it took a long time before. Once you get amplifiers involved and things, there's like a lot of bad shows to be seen. Growing up, like people who've been with me since the beginning, I mean, honestly, like literally just, I would say this record, we finally have this crew that, like, a sound man that's awesome and the band click. Like, we've only really just gotten professional. And how old am I? I'm 38. This is me. I finally arrived this year.
Who are some of the artists that are your contemporaries, or even older, but that you look to for kind of sort of a what would Jesus do kind of figures?
As in contemporaries or as in people like Neil Young or something?
Well, I mean, I guess, people like Neil Young or something, but I guess also maybe it's elevating it too much to put it in the what would Jesus do category, but just artists who, in more recent years you think, like, what, it's not all fucked out here, like these, obviously Courtney Barnett is someone with whom you've worked directly. Well,
Courtney, she was such a beautiful voice, and I had met her anyway, and I connected with her anyway, but then all of a sudden, through the power of music and that song Depressed, then I fell in love with. I loved other songs too, but I just wanted to do one song with her. It was like there's all kinds of people. Even that first band I mentioned, Blues Control, like they invited me and Jesse to play on one of their Silk Breeze album, Local Flavor, in the 2000s, and I was like, that's somebody I'd want to collaborate with. Or like Kim Gordon, finally had her play on something, but I don't, anybody like that I'd want to play with. Jay Mascis, and he invited me to play on his solo record back in 2010. There's all kinds, Jay Mascis. What would Jay Mascis do? What does he play? What does he use? What would Steve Malkmus I just jammed with Steve Malkmus finally in Amsterdam.
Oh,
There's
nice.
all kinds of people. And then as far, there's, I would say one band I just worship, and it's the realest band I can think of that I know are this band, the Sadies. I don't know if you ever seen them live, but it's just unbelievable. And they're two brothers from Canada. People don't even, not even that. Plenty of people in the know them, but not nearly as many as should. But we're touring with them in March and February in the States. You should come.
I will, and also everyone else should also come. Everyone else in the world.
No dates. No places mentioned.
No dates. Just go to the plug it into.
Just go and
plug it. There's a URL. Plug into a URL. But I mean, what aspect of your, sort of going back to the idea of like how your songwriting process or whatever has changed? What aspect of putting together a song do you feel like you've improved at the most?
Well, I never write just one specific style of song. I got different styles of songs. I got like the finger picker, heartbreakers, and the acoustic strummers, and then the rock songs. Like I've developed some cool, closer, somewhere between Neil Young and I Love Rock and Roll, or something like KV Crimes, from Waking Up Pretty Days album, and then there's other epic songs on there like Waking on a Pretty Day and Gold Tone, which are like, I feel like I'm always exploring new territory. And then this most recent record, I guess it's a combination of two different things. And I think in a way it's sometimes the songs have a little less structure when they're long on this record, and that was just the kind of record I was making. I'd say my brain was definitely more scattered. I don't know. You get a little older and things get a little crazier. The world makes you a little freaked out and scattered. My life is scattered. But then there's other moments where I got this fine-tuned sort of rock song like Loading Zones, or you're covering an AM Gold song by Charlie Rich, and there's like this concise pop situation. There's so many different kinds of song, and I really think I don't like have too many rules, so I feel like I can always just go in and out of these different things, and just go to the piano. I like to go to the piano at home, and there's all kinds of outlets. It's hard to just focus on one thing or explain any which style or which way I'm gonna go at any moment.
Do you feel? I mean, I don't sense that you're like a person who has allowed the concept of external pressure to really affect, what you're doing with your music in any given moment. But
yeah, sure. But then there always is a little. There always is a little in some ways. But it's more for myself. I wanna. I think this record in particular, I was like, oh, this is out of the park. This is my best record ever, and every record is my best record ever. But it is like songs like Check Baby. They do go on for a while. There's a lot of verses, and it's cool. But I get so close to it. I'm so into it, and then I put it out there. And certain song, it's fun to play Check Baby live, for instance. And Skinny Mini, which is very long. We play that live every night, and they're both really long on the records, and then we cut them down a little bit live, which is kind of funny because a lot of times the other thing happens. Where you jam it out longer. But it really. But I do. I'm always improving, and sometimes I think I don't know. I think I got like I know I have a hit record in me, and I've had all kinds of versions of hit records, but I don't think I quite have. I'm gonna have a few. Let me just tell you, I promise I'm gonna have like a few different hit records in my lifetime. I
believe that.
Thanks. But and I have all kinds of hit songs. And, some of them are really hits, and some are like. I know they're hit songs that like everybody's got their own niche, and I got a bunch of songs. My first album I called it Constant Hitmaker, and there's hits on there. There's like poppy tunes like Freeway and Breathing Out and Don't Get Cute, and they're varying in audio quality for sure. And or songs like Baby's Arms on Smoke Ring for My Halo, or Peeping Tomboy, which Courtney, made her cry so much that she had to cover that. And that's just some examples jumping around, but I know that I have like this really beautiful sort of somewhere between pop music and folk and everything in between. I've got a record like that, and I've got a bunch of other records. I'm very competitive as well.
Okay, so yeah, well, that was going to be my follow-up question. Was just so the idea that there's hit with a capital H and hit with a lowercase h, right? Like the things that are just like, we would agree it's a hit, but it doesn't become a hit or something. Yeah. But the idea of having a song that that officially becomes like a top 40 hit, that's something you would like, that you intend to do.
Yeah, but I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna Well, I'm going to try not to. I would hate if I got a hit record and it ended up I did it by totally losing all my balls and getting all like real smooth or something.
Bruno Mars, suddenly you're getting a Bruno Mars song.
Let's hope it's not that way.
Right, but I mean, because it's interesting, because I was actually just, leading up to this, going to say, okay, so, well, you're not at this point. You must be sort of just like, fuck it if I have a hit or not, because this is all going kind of, this is great. I get to do this shit.
I'm gonna have a hit, and I can feel it. This is an important record because I love this record, but it gave us all this new material to play, and now we can play so much different. There's so many different big songs throughout these bunch of records, 7-8 records. Not including EPs, that we can pull from now, and the live shows are really tight now and rocking, and I see the fans out there, and I can see it's the kind of music that's you can be obsessed. I'm obsessive, and it's kind of like varying levels of emotional, depending. So like, I feel like the fans are pretty dedicated, and that's another thing. I have a lot, maybe my contemporaries that I mentioned that I respect, and various bands I've been involved with or in my circle. I have more records than most of those people. I have, so I don't know. I just think that it's going really good, and I can see it in our performance. I can see it in the fans, but but I still have yet to have like a swing out of the park hit record, of which I will.
Who's your sort of go-to person when you want honest feedback on a song that you're working on?
Well, I got a great crew here. The Violators spare no. And it's fun too, even live, to extend it to live. Like our tour manager Craig McQuiston, he tour manages the War on Drugs as well. He's real verbal, which is awesome. Like I love the help, and our sound man Aaron is I don't know, people I trust. And then, somebody like Rob Schnapp, great producer. He's one of my favorite people to work with. I'm trying to think of a musician.
I mean, I guess like, is there any one person who's particularly the barometer where it's just like, okay, like who's the first person you play a new song for?
I'll tell you, the people I play the new song for are usually right in the studio. I don't
right. Whoever's closest.
Stella Mozgawa, who's a good friend of mine that plays drums, incredible, from Warpaint, and she definitely the previous record, Pretty Pimpin'. I brought that over to her house before we went in and recorded it, and that was cool. Yeah, they're all kind. I got lots of different people, like my band. My immediate band, but then I got like these other people I get to play with too that aren't even in my steady band. It's pretty cool. It's like I got the Violators, and then I got all these other people I can play with if I want to too. If I get it, needing to escape.
Are you flexible about songs when they're at that phase, or do you like getting constructive criticism, or sort of like once it's there, you're...
Sorry, say that one more time.
I said, are you receptive to constructive criticism from people on a song that's still
I am, and I'll tell you, I collaborate a lot with my bandmate Rob Laxo, and it's funny, I did this Spotify session, and we were in the studio for a second. We did a cover of Rolling Stones, and I was so glad he was there. We did No Expectations, and he played bass. Like, me and him bounce off each other really good. And I will say, sometimes in the moment, yeah, I could be defensive. He could say he wouldn't like something, or he'll take it a different, he'll take the song a different direction. It's a push and pull. Once in a while you get annoyed, but ultimately it's good to have these people that I can fucking bounce off of, and I'm lucky, very lucky.
What do your girls think of your tunes?
They love it. They do.
What are their
fans?
What are their favorite songs?
These days, their favorites are, I've been playing some oldies for them, like Don't Get Cute and Breathing Out, and Freeway in Mind. But they, Wilda, my oldest, she always requests that I play Jesus Fever. Delphine likes me to do Pretty Pimpin' in a weird voice. That's just some examples.
Does it reinforce the idea that like kids know what not a hit?
I'll tell you,
like kids know what a hit is.
Funny,
kind of.
It's true. Well, there's two things. One, Roger Miller, like the country.
Yeah.
Rock. Well, they, that song "Dang Me," which is so good, but like the producer, I think Kennedy, I forget his name. Whatever. I think his last name's Kennedy. I could be wrong. He's only just a legendary producer. That's all, from Nashville. But he platted on a reel-to-reel, and there was another song first, and then "Dang Me" came after it, and they were already going to press the singles, and his son started like dancing, was like boop, 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 for the "Dang Me." He's like, "No, this is the hit," and he got on the phone, and he repressed it, and it became number one. But similar, I got a bunch of various brothers and sisters, but my sisters have kids, and definitely the last record, Believe in Going Down, after Pretty Pimpin' came out, and certain friends who have kids, all the kids look at me differently now, because it's just kids like that shit. They do. It's weird. They're like, "Oh, Uncle Kurt."
That's what
they look at me different.
You have this informal census group now for all your hit crafting. You get all of the nieces and nephews and the kids together. You'd be like, "All right, hold up." They could give them Olympic judge cards or something.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'll wrap things up with you, Kurt.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for
problem.
doing this.
Yeah, for sure.
What a dude, Kurt Vile, ladies and gentlemen. And as I mentioned earlier, he and his band, The Violators, are back on tour in North America, starting in the coming days. And coming up next, in episode 22 of LSQ, I dug into my audio archive for an excerpt from an interview with Rivers Cuomo that I did for Rolling Stone back in the early aughts, around when Weezer's album Maladroit was coming out. In late January, they surprised the world with a covers album, a self-titled LP known as the Teal Album, and in the weeks ahead, they're going to be putting out a self-titled 13th studio album with a black cover, and for a guy who grew up with Metallica as one of his favorite bands, I guess a black album by Weezer was inevitable. So let's listen to a bit of what Rivers had to say back in early '02, I suppose, about his love of metal.
I guess the key is to come up with a style that integrates as much of your personality as you possibly can.
Right.
So that when people meet you, they aren't surprised at all, and they feel like they've known you their whole lives.
Do you think you're continually working toward that?
I think so. I feel like the first album was a very consciously limited sound.
Mm-hmm.
Very consciously excluding many elements of my musical upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I finally started to let some more of myself out in my music. It's just natural. I mean, you can only repress parts of yourself for so long before they just start bursting out.
Right.
And I think eventually I'll feel like I'm fully expressing myself in our music. And not just myself, but all four of us.
Right. And most recently, the thing that's been integrated, I guess, is more obvious metal.
Yeah.
Than before. But, I guess the thing is, I was listening to the record today in the car, and intentionally listening for, like, the metal stuff, because I knew that was something that you were interested in doing, and then I thought to myself, well, people are going to think that this is sarcastic,
Yeah. I guess it's like people think, he can't be serious.
Yeah.
That's really sad. I'm like the guy who says something very sincerely and everyone laughs and thinks it's hysterical. So I just have to go along with it. So at least I'm getting some kind of attention.
But when you were in high school, what music were you? I mean, you say you started playing guitar when you were 13. What were the things that you initially got really, really excited about? What was your first favorite band?
Kiss. Then Quiet Riot, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Scorpions, Metallica, Slayer. Kind of going in chronological order here. And if I had to hold up one band as a symbol of my high school years that represented what I was about in high school, it would be Metallica.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you look like a metal kid? Were you all metalled out?
Yeah.
Long hair?
Yep.
When did you grow out of being visibly a metalhead? When did the hair get cut off?
Well, right after high school, I moved to LA, and I got a job at Tower Records on Sunset, and I started getting exposed to all different kinds of music, like the Pixies and Sonic Youth, and at first it just sounded like a bunch of noise to me, but then I started to really like it, and then suddenly metal started to seem kind of foolish.
Right.
And then we got Weezer together.
And then you repressed the metal?
And then I repressed the metal and very consciously went in another direction, like most of my generation did, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Or at least the musicians did. And and I know so many guitar players that very consciously had to hold back their style because suddenly metal just felt really dumb.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I'm trying to work out that conflict and integrate the music that I grew up loving with what I think is cool now.
Did it
it's
come
not an easy task.
Did it come like a moment of clarity, like within the past few years or so, where you're like, fuck it, I still really love this stuff? Or was it just sort of a gradual thing?
Well, I think after Pinkerton, there was definitely, I felt a need to reevaluate what was going on, because things felt kind of contrived.
Right.
And I was hearing all new kinds of music at the time that was really kicking my ass.
Such as?
Ironically, techno. Stuff like Prodigy, Crystal Method.
Right.
And I was becoming painfully aware that sort of music rocked a lot more than what I was doing. And I enjoyed going to those kind of concerts. Oh, and Spiritualized kicked my ass too at that time. So I just became determined to open myself up to guitar playing again and really have fun and just be more instinctual on the guitar.
Did it take a while to work up your chops?
No, I never lost my chops.
Well, that does indeed bring us to the end of episode 22 of the LSQ podcast. Massive thanks to Kurt Vile for his time and candor, and thanks to Rennie Jaffe for making that interview happen. Also, of course, thanks to Rivers Cuomo, and most of all, thanks to you for listening. If you don't already subscribe, consider doing that. I've got some episodes coming up you won't want to miss, including interviews with Perfume Genius's Mike Hadrius, Bob Mould, Hamilton Lighthouser, Royal Trucks' Jennifer Harima, Dan Reynolds of Imagine Dragons, Lauren Mayberry of Churches, and much more. It's going to be a great year on the LSQ pod. So yeah, subscribe, leave feedback, etc. And you can always reach me on Twitter @JennyLSQ.